The euro crisis is the questioning of the sustainability of the euro as a global currency. The euro is the currency of what is known as the Eurozone, which is made up of 17 nations within the European Union. What has changed that makes the euro crisis important now is the timing. Many countries, actually all countries within the Eurozone, issue euro-denominated bonds. These bonds have payment schedules on which these countries will pay back the money they borrowed. We're getting closer and closer to these due dates of these payments, and it is becoming clear that some of these countries will not be able to make their payments. With the shortened time frame, the options available to help these countries make these obligations are dwindling, making a higher risk for default. The risk for default is what brings in the question of the euro as a viable currency. The euro crisis affects two sectors directly, and this is why it's important that IT leaders pay attention. One is the government sector. They're a big consumer of IT, but more importantly, the government is responsible for putting together fiscal policy to aid economies in an economic crisis. Number two is the financial services sector. Again, big consumers of technology, but also a provider of liquidity to enterprises that enables companies to invest and run their businesses. These two sectors will not be able to carry out those roles if the euro crisis worsens. This will create economic instability in the region. Companies must be prepared to be able to deal in such a scenario with this economic uncertainty. And this is why it matters, not only because your end market demand is going to go away, but because the secular ability to address that demand is going away. The risk of not paying attention to the euro crisis now is like anything else. It'll become too late to prepare. When you're not prepared, you're going to be making reactionary decisions. Reactionary decisions often handle the immediate problem, but they compromise long-term strategies. By preparing now and putting a plan in place, vetting that plan and thinking of the option, if this crisis is able to hit a boiling point, these companies can execute on these plans and act both in solving potential short-term problems as well as not compromising their long-term strategy. The only way to do that is by having a well-thought-out and well-structured plan and a model that these companies can follow as the economic crisis or the euro crisis intensifies and how it might affect IT organizations. The top pain points by the euro crisis are really going to depend on individual businesses. What is triggering the euro crisis is a structural problem, and the only solution is fiscal reform. This is unlike typical economic cycles where you alleviate the problem through fiscal policy. When this is over, and as we actually go through the euro crisis, you will have different ways in which you will need to be able to adjust into the secular changes that are inevitably going to follow the euro crisis. These changes will dramatically impact the way companies use, buy, and deploy IT. Gartner has advice to help us get through two phases of the euro crisis. The first is how to prepare your IT organization to weather the storm of which we're going through. In some cases, enterprises will be challenged to even survive the acute stage that we're at now. We give advice on how to position your IT organization to maximize and to optimize the returns that your company will deliver to survive in this current acute situation. The second part is what to do in a post-euro crisis scenario. This crisis will be resolved, and we will have secular changes and a new order in which to do business, not only in the European Union, but throughout the globe. By Gartner's breadth and depth, we'll be able to take and put together actionable advice to be able to help companies prepare strategically on how to capitalize in what is going to be this new world order.